Somebody you know eats whatever they want and never gains weight. Somebody else looks at a slice of pizza and their jeans get tighter. Both of them blame metabolism. Neither of them can explain what it actually is. Metabolism is one of those words people use constantly without understanding what it refers to. Fast metabolism, slow metabolism, boost your metabolism, metabolism-friendly foods. It gets thrown around like a personality trait when it's actually a mechanical process, and a fairly straightforward one once someone explains it without using words like thermogenesis and basal metabolic rate in the first sentence. If you're the person who never gets it until someone gives you the right analogy, this channel is for you. Subscribe. At its simplest, metabolism is the process by which your body converts food into energy. That's the entire definition. You eat something, your body breaks it down, and it either uses the energy immediately or stores it for later. Everything else is details. Think of your body like a factory that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and never shuts down. Not when you're sleeping, not when you're sitting on the couch, not even when you're doing absolutely nothing. The factory is always running because staying alive requires constant work. Your heart needs to beat, your lungs need to breathe, your brain needs to fire, your cells need to repair and replace themselves. All of that costs energy, and metabolism is the process that supplies it. Food is the raw material that arrives at the factory loading dock. Your digestive system is the intake department that breaks the shipment down into usable components. Proteins get broken into amino acids, carbs get broken into glucose, fats get broken into fatty acids. These components are the actual fuel your factory runs on. Now here's the part that surprises most people. The biggest energy expense in your factory isn't movement. It's keeping the lights on. Roughly 60 to 70% of all the calories you burn in a day go to just existing. Breathing, circulating blood, maintaining body temperature, running your brain, repairing cells. You could lie in bed all day and your body would still burn the majority of its daily calories. This baseline cost is what doctors call your basal metabolic rate. And it's the furnace that's always running in the basement of the factory, whether anyone's working upstairs or not. Think of it like the electricity bill for a building. Even if every employee goes home and the offices are empty, the building still needs heating, security systems, elevator standby power, server rooms running, emergency lights on. The building's baseline electricity cost exists independent of what anyone inside is doing. Your body works the same way. The baseline burn is massive and it never stops. This is why metabolism matters so much for weight. The furnace in the basement burns most of your calories. Exercise, walking, fidgeting, and daily movement burn another 20 to 30%. And here's the part nobody expects. Digesting food itself burns about 10%. Your body spends energy breaking down the very food it's using for energy. It costs money to process the payroll. So when people say someone has a fast metabolism, what they usually mean is that person's furnace runs hotter. Their baseline burn is higher. And the factors that determine furnace temperature are less mysterious than the diet industry wants you to believe. The biggest factor is body size and composition. Muscle tissue is expensive to maintain. Fat tissue is cheap. Think of muscle like a department in your factory that has employees working around the clock. Even when they're not producing anything, they're on the payroll, consuming energy just by being there. Fat is more like a warehouse. It stores stuff. It doesn't need a staff. It just sits there costing almost nothing to maintain. This is why two people who weigh the same can have very different metabolisms. One has more muscle, which means more departments with active employees, which means a higher energy bill. The other has more fat storage and fewer active departments. Same building size, dramatically different operating costs. Quick favor before the next part. If this has been useful, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this video reach other people who need it. Back to it. Now let me talk about what happens when you diet, because this is where your factory does something brilliant and infuriating at the same time. When you eat less than your body needs, you'd expect the factory to simply dip into the warehouse, pull some stored fat, burn it, and keep running normally. And it does, for a while. But your body didn't evolve in a world of intentional dieting. It evolved in a world of famines. And the moment it senses less fuel coming in, it assumes a famine is starting and activates survival mode. Think of it like a company during a budget crisis. The CEO doesn't just pull from savings and keep spending normally. The CEO cuts costs everywhere. Lay off some workers, turn down the thermostat, reduce operating hours, cancel non-essential projects. The company shrinks its operations to match the reduced budget. Your body does exactly this. You eat less, so it burns less. It lowers the furnace temperature. It reduces energy allocated to things it considers non-essential, which is why people on severe diets often feel cold, tired, foggy, and irritable. The factory is running a skeleton crew. Your metabolism literally slows down to match the reduced food supply. This is why crash diets backfire so consistently. You cut calories dramatically, you lose weight for a few weeks, and then progress stalls because the factory adjusted its budget downward. When you eventually start eating normally again, the factory doesn't immediately crank the furnace back up. It stays in crisis mode for a while, which means the same amount of food that used to maintain your weight now creates a surplus. And that surplus goes straight to the warehouse, straight to fat storage. You didn't fail the diet, the factory outsmarted you. It's been surviving famines for 200,000 years. It's better at this game than you are. This is also why slow, moderate calorie reduction works better than dramatic cuts. If the budget reduction is small enough, the CEO doesn't panic. A 10 to 15% reduction in food intake often flies under the radar. The factory adjusts slightly, but doesn't go into full crisis mode. You lose fat slower, but the furnace stays warm and the loss actually sticks. Let me clear up one more thing that the supplement industry has made a fortune confusing people about. The idea of boosting your metabolism. Green tea, cayenne pepper, apple cider vinegar, metabolism supplements. The entire market is built on the promise that you can crank up the furnace with a product. And technically, some of these do increase metabolic rate by about 2 to 3% for a few hours. Think of these supplements like opening a window in the factory on a cold day. Technically, the heating system has to work slightly harder, but the difference is so small it's almost unmeasurable on the energy bill. You didn't boost the furnace, you created a draft. The things that actually change your metabolic rate in a meaningful way are building muscle, which adds more active departments to the factory, getting adequate sleep, which keeps the CEO from panicking and cutting costs, eating enough protein, which costs more to digest than carbs or fats, and staying generally active throughout the day, not just during a workout. A person who walks, fidgets, takes stairs, and moves around all day burns significantly more than someone who does a hard 45-minute gym session and sits completely still for the remaining 23 hours. Let me stack all of this together so it locks in. Metabolism is your body's factory converting food into energy. The factory runs 24 hours a day, and the biggest expense is the furnace in the basement that keeps you alive, not exercise. Muscle is an active department with employees on payroll. Fat is a warehouse that costs almost nothing to maintain. Crash diets trigger the CEO to slash the factory budget like a famine is coming, which is why they backfire. Metabolism supplements are like opening a window and expecting the heating bill to change. The real levers are muscle mass, sleep, protein, and staying active across the whole day. That's metabolism. Not a genetic lottery you're stuck with. Not a magical force that makes some people thin. A factory running on fuel with a budget. It adjusts based on what you give it and what you demand from it. If this helped metabolism finally make sense, do me 2 quick favors. Hit the like button and subscribe so you catch the next one. I'm deciding between 2 topics for the next video, and I want you to pick. Should I explain how sleep works using a software update analogy? Or how the immune system works using a castle defense analogy? Drop A or B in the comments, and whichever gets more votes, I'll make first. Thanks for watching.